Welcome to Seeing This. We have a very, very special main episode today. I'm going ISO. It's just me. But that's because I got to speak with the two filmmakers behind the documentary, The Donn of Tiki. I was fortunate to get to watch this movie as Alex Lamb and Max Well, the two filmmakers behind this film, are currently on a roadshow across the country bringing this uniquely creative story of Donn The Beachcomber, who was the original creator of the Tiki restaurant. I'm sure you've probably been to a Tiki restaurant or had one of Donn's drinks. It covers the larger-than-life story of Donn, which includes his start during the Prohibition era, questionable connections with the mob, his time in jail, his influence across the Pacific Islands, the women of his life, and how he reinvented himself at every stage of his life. This was a real joy to watch. I thoroughly enjoyed this documentary, and to be quite honest, it has something for everyone. So let's go to my interview with the filmmakers Alex Lamb and Max Well. Very, very excited to be joined by Alex Lamb and Max Well, the filmmakers of the documentary, The Donn of Tiki. As Burt Reynolds says in Boogie Nights, those are great names. Welcome. How are you guys doing?
Good. How are you doing, Michael?
Great.
Thank you for having us.
Doing well. I was just talking with Alex about kind of this journey you guys have been on as far as the Donn of Tiki, the story of Donn The Beachcomber. And I was really fascinated watching this movie. I really had no previous information, and from beginning to end to see kind of how he revolutionized himself throughout his journey. And it's just such an interesting story that I'm curious, did it ever cross your guys' mind to do more of a like a scripted feature, or was it always documentary the way you guys did your research?
It did definitely occur to us at some point that we could take all of these elements from Donn's story and really, write that out as a narrative. To be honest, we're kind of leaving that idea open, I think, because we've really, we love the material. We love doing the research and learning about Donn's life. And he's one of these guys that just had this fascinating experience. It's a total rabbit hole thing that the more you learn, the more you want to know. And some of his adventures are kind of unbelievable, but they actually did happen.
Yeah. And I think the biggest hurdle for us is that finding the funding to do a
Sure.
narrative feature would have been impossible, where making this documentary was something that was within our reach. It was still a little bit of a learning curve for us to kind of like do the fundraising and make it happen, but it was possible. I think independent film documentaries are kind of like one of the last types of films where you can truly make them independently on your own,
And this started, and correct me if I'm wrong, as a bit of a COVID project. Alex, I believe you're trying to master your mixology. I guess I'll start and say, how's that going?
Oh, it's going great. Yeah, my wife loves my cocktails. I'm trying to drink less, so I'll be making myself mocktails while I'm making her the hard stuff.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, with this journey of now, 5 years in creating this, it was fascinating to see the story you put together. And with Donn's life being larger than life, stranger than fiction, as you kind of were mentioning, you do a great job of framing him as a bit of a unreliable narrator, kind of just from the start to kind of set the foundation of the story. Can you kind of talk to me about your process of determining what do you keep in? What do you take out? How do you kind of navigate selecting the narrative through the story?
Yeah, I think one of the challenges of doing a film about a historical figure like this is that there are things you can verify and things you cannot, right? So some of the stuff is just lost to time. And some of it, you might have a firsthand account of something, but there may not be any documentation to support that story, right? So we sort of broke this down into three different categories. There were the facts that we could verify and back up with paperwork. And then there was what we think happened based on the best available information. And that's either first or secondhand accounts. and then kind of, looking at the timeline of things that we can corroborate and saying, okay, this is the most likely situation. And then the third thing is just, this is Donn's version of events. May or may not be true. We don't really know, and we're just going to roll with it. And in the beginning of the film, there's this intro shot that kind of gives you a very brief history of Donn and the birth of Tiki in a minute or less than a minute. And it says at the end of that, this is Donn's story, or at least the story he'd like you to believe.
Right.
And that kind of gives you, that works in two different ways. First, it tells the audience, we're gonna have a little bit of fun with this, right? And secondly, it just, like you said, it establishes Donn as sort of this unreliable narrator. So it's like we know when we're hearing him that this may not be 100% true, and that's okay.
One thing that I thought was really unique about this, and to be quite honest, I hadn't seen anything like this, is the way you guys utilize the animation in this film from, various styles that go kind of across decades in Donn's life, and that style matches that time period, as well as the stop motion that is used for his interview. I'm curious, was that interview from a singular interview he did, or did you pick and pull from different interviews he's done over the course of time?
It was from a singular interview he did. It was about 3 years before he passed away. I believe it was 1986. It was done by the Wadamel Oral History Foundation in Hawaii. They interviewed people in Hawaii who were integral in Hawaiian tourism or business on the island, and Donn was one of the people they interviewed. And this transcript had been kind of floating around the internet. People had seen it, but we noticed at the bottom of the transcript there were tape numbers, so we thought maybe there's audio out there somewhere. And we were kind of told by multiple people, you're not going to find it. People in the tiki world, they're like, yeah, you're never going to find those tapes. And we kind of just started from scratch and started emailing and calling people, and we ended up finding it at where was it, Max? The library.
I think it was I think it was the University of Hawaii Library.
Oh wow.
Just a cardboard box full of cassette tapes from this project.
Yeah. And they transferred it for us for like $14, and we were on our way. It was amazing because we could hear Donn's voice, and Donn's voice is not something a lot of people had heard before. So everybody knew the man and knew what he had done, but hearing him tell these stories in his own words was really kind of a religious moment, I think, for us when we first heard it.
And at what point of the production were you at, or pre-production, when you came across this tape? Was that kind of like a launching pad, or were you already established by this point and this was just a bonus?
I think we were pretty early on still.
Yeah.
Right,
it was relatively early. I mean, we were still doing research and putting together the timeline and setting up interviews. Yeah, and then when we got permission to use that in the film, that was kind of a big turning point, because it was like, oh wow, this kind of changes our whole approach in some ways. It was also, I will say, the audio was pretty degraded. It was nearly 40-year-old cassette tape. So we had some concerns early on, like, are we going to be able to use this? There are parts of it that are hard to understand. We might have to have subtitles up across the whole thing. Luckily, our audio designer was able to clean it up really well. But that was also a turning point in the sense that we thought, okay, Donn himself is going to be a bigger part of this film. And that's when Alex had the idea to make him a stop motion animated figure.
You definitely cannot tell, as far as the audio design on that it would be as old as it is, or that you even had that concern. So kudos to the team there. Has animation always been an important aspect to your guys' life? Is there any kind of specific inspiration that went into the styles that you chose?
For me, animation, when I watch documentaries, even if it's good animation or decent animation, it always feels like animation was an afterthought. Like, oh, we need to throw in some animation here. What do we have enough money to do? And I just thought, for a film like this, it would be really cool if animation was something that we planned on in the very beginning. And Max agreed, like, let's budget for that now, knowing that that's going to be a big part of this, and let's try to make the animation stand out and be really cool, and be cool on its own, not just be something that bridges audio that we don't have any picture for,
Mhm.
which I think is what happens a lot in documentaries.
Yeah, and I'll say I grew up watching cartoons. That was always something that I loved, and all of the different styles. Going back to watching like the Flintstones as a kid, the Hanna-Barbera kind of stuff. And then later, I became more familiar with even earlier stuff than that, old Looney Tunes, and going back to kind of black and white era. And that was a concept Alex kind of wanted to add into this film, was what if the style of animation could change as the story unfolds over time? Which we both loved that idea as soon as Alex thought about it. And then we had a little bit of a, I don't know, reality check, I guess. But we talked to a couple of animation studios here in LA, and it was going to be way, way too expensive to do that, because they have to create different backgrounds, different character designs for every era. So it more or less quadrupled the work. And then we had a great call. We got introduced to this company based in Bogota, Colombia, called Venturia Animation. And the first call we had with Juan Urbina, their lead creative, we had given up on this idea, and he said, "Guys, I want to just run something by you. What if the style of animation changed over time as the story progressed?" And then, so we were totally on board at that point. We were like, "Okay, this guy gets it."
Yeah.
And they're huge animation history buffs there, so it was really important to them to get all the details right. Going all the way back to that 20s and 30s, black and white Steamboat Willie style, up into the 80s.
And as a viewer, you don't pick up on that right away. Like, obviously Don's stop motion is different than that style, but I feel like as the time goes, obviously when it turns into a color animation, you're like, oh wait, they're doing something very creative here. So I'm so happy to hear you're able to find a collaborator that was on that same wavelength as you. That's a very eureka moment, I can imagine.
Yeah.
I found Don's story just incredibly inspirational because he was able to reinvent himself throughout his life at different stages, considering the various obstacles that he encountered throughout his life. I'm curious, what's the most inspirational thing that you each took away from doing this project, from what you learned from Donn, and is that something that you think you'll take forward on future projects you work on?
Yeah, I'm very inspired by Don's sort of attitude of, if you have an idea, go for it. Just do it, is kind of how he did everything. And a lot of his ideas failed, and instead of wallowing in that failure, he kind of just moved on to the next idea. And he had way more failures than he did successes, but he did some really cool stuff. And I think that that's really inspirational to me, to just, you know, go out and do what you want to see.
Yeah, I think my biggest takeaway from Don is this attention to detail that he
Mm-hmm.
had.
Mm-hmm.
When he was putting together a project, he wasn't willing to compromise on almost anything. He didn't want to take any shortcuts. He wanted to do it, and he wanted to do it the right way. So, if you're going to do something, go big or go home, I guess.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Very inspirational in that regard. How we talked about Donn being a bit of an unreliable narrator in the story, or storyteller in the story. I'm curious, when you guys were doing interviews, reaching out to people, you talked to a lot of different people, from current tiki owners to people that were in his life. These various interviews you do, did you find also challenges as far as determining what is reliable, what's truth? Did that line blur with those interviews as well?
Yeah, some of those interviews, it's interesting. Even the people who knew Don, they would give us their point of view.
Mm.
Don's nephews, for example, one of Don's nephews, his point of view was really that, like, Don was just following his older brother Hugh around, which was uh David, who we were interviewing. It was his dad. Um and we were like, okay, so like, what can we take from this? We know that Donn and Hugh did this, and we know that this happened and this happened, but it was this thing where you kind of had to uh, decipher what was real based on his point of view. And another thing is that like Donn is so legendary in the Tiki community. A lot of people are kind of repeating stories that they had heard. Like if they hadn't known Donn, it kind of turned into this thing where it was like a game of telephone where people were telling us stories and we were like, okay, well, this other person also told us that story, but you just added like a bunch of other details to it, you know?
Right.
So there was a lot of that we had to kind of weed through in the editing process.
That's fascinating. Yeah, I can only imagine, with a story like this, trying to, no pun intended, but comb through truth and kind of figure out what you can really go with. You guys have been on quite a journey as far as, releasing this film. You're currently on what sounds like a cross-country road trip as far as showing this at different theaters. Can you talk to me a little bit about what that experience is like? Have you done that before? And have you learned anything through that process as far as doing in-house distribution?
Yeah, getting the film out to an audience has been great. And we have not really done that before with any of our previous projects. So last year, 2024, we had a good film festival run. We did our world premiere at the Florida Film Festival just outside Orlando last year, and had a great turnout. And we did about 10 film festivals, I think, over the course of 2024. And we sort of had this epiphany moment. We had a fantastic screening here in Hollywood, California. We had 2 screenings. They gave us a second screening because the film sold out. And it was we were like, okay, there's 600 people that wanted to see this film this weekend. And you're paying $20 a ticket. And yeah, we were kind of like, wait a minute. So the film festivals are wonderful to get the film out to an audience. But as the filmmakers, it's like, you don't really get a lot of money from that, if any money, right? There are some other perks, but we sort of thought, well, hey, if people are going to show up, because we sort of know who our core audience is for this movie, we could do that ourselves. So we sort of finished our festival run last year, and then we thought, why don't we just try to set up some screenings on our own? And so we started in the Bay Area earlier this year. Since then, we've played in Denver, Las Vegas, Salt Lake City, Long Beach, all over the place. And we're going to end up doing about 30 theatrical screenings this year. And it's been great. It's been really awesome just to take the film out and connect with the people who have been following the project. I mean, there are a lot of people who've been following this for 4 or 5 years and they feel invested in it. Some of them are literally invested in it.
Sure.
And a lot of people are just emotionally invested. So it's been great. And then eventually we're going to have some sort of more traditional digital release and a Blu-ray, but we don't know exactly when that'll be. And doing it this way has given us a lot of control and just a lot of direct interaction with people who love the film, which has been really fun as a creator.
That's awesome. I was just talking to Alex before we started recording here, and he mentioned that yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, you were screening at Vancouver, Washington, where, funny enough, that's where I live. But I just got back into town from Southern California today, but it sounds like it's been great turnout and a lot of great success. So congratulations in that regard.
Thank you.
I'm curious, for either both of you or individually, what direction are you guys going with next as far as projects? Do you continue to collaborate together? Have you found that documentaries is kind of a lane that you want to explore more? Where's your guys' headspace in that regard?
Yeah. I mean, I think we've been collaborating together for 20 years now. I think we'll continue to collaborate.
And I didn't mean to make it awkward if you're like, I'm done working with this guy.
Yeah. But this is our first documentary. There are other things that we are interested in possibly making documentaries about, but we come from a narrative world. We would like, to see if we can create some opportunities to make a narrative feature in the near future. So we have a couple things moving in the background, but nothing solid yet. So there's a few different things. Some of them are documentaries, some of them are not.
Yeah, it's been. I mean, we've sort of mixed backgrounds, so we have a mix of, we've done some documentary work here and there. We've done some music videos. We've done commercials. Alex is a TV editor. I do a lot of commercial work. So we kind of come from this world where we have done a lot of different things, and we want to continue to sort of try new things. That's part of the fun of doing this, right? It's like very easy to get sort of pigeonholed into one little niche, which is not a bad thing, but it's also fun to branch out and explore. So we have, there's a couple of documentary ideas we've been kicking around, as well as a couple narratives. So we'll see what the next project is. We've got a few options.
I love it. I mean, this has been a very unique and creative documentary, one that I haven't necessarily seen like this. And there's clearly a creative minds behind it. So I definitely look forward to your future projects. You guys have been very gracious with your time. Just one last question for you. Is there something that's been underseen that you could recommend to folks, whether it's a documentary, feature film, short film, something that you think is underseen that's really had an impact on you that you'd like to recommend to people?
I love this documentary called Filmage, which is a documentary about a punk rock band called The Descendants. I think it's a really well-made documentary. If you don't know anything about The Descendants, I think it's still an entertaining documentary. And Max is probably really annoyed from me talking about it so much, because when we were editing Donn of Tiki, I kept being like, well, this is how they would do it in the Descendants documentary, and we're like, these documentaries are nothing alike, but because it was edited in such a good way, I think that it was a huge inspiration for me. So that's something I would recommend. The other thing is King of Kong is my favorite documentary of all time. The documentary about the high score and Donkey Kong and the battle between good and evil.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say King of Kong was a great...
I just stole it from you.
That was one that we kind of kept coming back to, doing this project. We're like, oh, man, I hope we can make something as good as King of Kong.
Yeah. Well, with King of Kong also, I think for me, because that came out like right when we graduated film school, I think. And I remember showing it to my mom and dad, and within 5 minutes, they were invested in the story of who has the high score in Donkey Kong, but neither of them care about Donkey Kong. Right. So I thought, this is really good filmmaking. And that was something that Max and I were constantly asking ourselves when we were editing the Donn of Tiki is, would our parents find this interesting? Would somebody who has no interest in Tiki find this interesting? Can we make this an engaging, universal story without it just being entertaining to the Tiki audience that we know is going to go out and watch it regardless,
Mission accomplished. I mean, that's exactly what I thought is, I'm not necessarily invested in Tiki. I've been to a Tiki bar here and there. I've had a zombie in my early 20s. I think those days are past me now. But same idea, the way you go back to the Prohibition period and all the way up till, obviously his death. This is a film that I think can be engaging and accessible for anyone in any generation. Like you're going to relate to this one way or another. I thought of my bartender mixologist friends and, they got to check this out. So all that to say, congratulations on this project. I'm really excited for more people to get to see this. Is there anything you guys would like to promote or add on?
Yeah, check out our website, thedonnoftiki.com. There's 2 N's in Donn. We're adding dates to our roadshow very, very regularly. Like every couple of weeks, there's new dates on there. So check it out. If we haven't been to your town yet, we're probably going to be somewhere near you soon. So follow us on Instagram, also Donn of Tiki, and follow our email newsletter on our website, and you'll find out when the screenings are.
Love it. Love it. And for those listening, watching, please do it. You're going to have a great time if you get a chance to see this, especially in a theater. Unfortunately, I didn't get to. Timing was off, but I had a great time with it. Alex, Lam, Maxwell, I thank both of you for your time. And again, best of luck on your way forward.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michael. We really appreciate it.
Thanks again to Alex and Max. I really had a great time talking with them. It was a wonderful conversation. Make sure to go to their website, thedonnoftiki.com. That's with 2 N's, theDonnofTiki.com. Follow them on their Instagram, as they mentioned, the Donn of Tiki. Check out their site to see if they're going to be coming to a theater near you in your hometown. Definitely be a great experience to see it on the big screen. Also, keep an eye out for the digital release. Lord knows when the physical media release comes out, I'm going to be on top of that. So keep your eyes open for that. Follow us on our socials, Seen This Pod, across everything: Instagram, Blue Sky, TikTok, Letterboxd. Send us an email, seenthisemail@gmail.com. And until next time, stay safe.